on engineering guidance and standards overview. Our goal with these webinars is to ensure our team members receive the technical training necessary to successfully deliver projects. I have just a few housekeeping items. We are scheduled for 2 hours today. This does include time for our presentation and some questions and answers. And we do have lots to go over, and so we do anticipate taking that full 2 hours. We are recording today's webinar. I see we just started that recording, so we are recording today's webinar, and we will place this into Mo.U for future training opportunities, as well as on our Design YouTube channel so that you can view it again. This webinar will also be added to the course catalog of the Program Delivery Training Program, and all of these sites can be found on the Program Delivery Training site. All the lines are muted during the presentations. However, the question and answer box will be open. If you have any questions during today's webinar, just type your question into that box, and we ask that you send that to all panelists. Will be one of the options you have from that drop-down box. And that way it goes to all of us, and we will be monitoring those questions during the presentation. And as we watch for those, we will determine if we should go ahead and pause the presenter and ask the presenter to address the question at that time, or if we will save it for later. After the presentation is complete, we will address all questions that have been submitted in the chat box. There may be some that we answer along the way, but if we have time, we will go back to all those questions and go through those answers again. We will also be able to take any questions verbally at the end of the presentation. You can do that by raising your hand. There's a little icon that looks like a hand. Just press on that icon, and we will notice that you have raised your hand, and then we will unmute you and call on you, and you can provide your question or comment, concern, whatever it is that you would have verbally at that time. For today's webinar, we do have several presenters, and I am pleased to introduce our speakers today. They are Sarah Kleinschmidt, Tim Olischlager, Rick Prosser, and Keith Smith of our Engineering Policy Services section of the Design Division. Sarah is our Engineering Policy and Innovations Engineer with Central Office Design Division. Sarah's role is to ensure MoDOT's engineering guidance and policies, standard plans, and standard specifications are updated and accurate and in compliance with the federal regulations. She does so by partnering with FHWA, all of our divisions, and even industry and contractors to ensure these goals are met. Sarah is an advocate for safety to the traveling public and all those who perform work and maintenance on Missouri's roadways and bridges. Sarah has been with MoDOT for over 20 years in various roles from design, construction inspection, to pavement material approvals. Tim Olischlager is a standard specialist in the Engineering Policy Service Group. He has gained 20 years of diverse experience working for MoDOT. He's been in the Central District Design and Construction, and also Central Office Highway Safety and Traffic, and now he's in Central Office Design. Rick Prosser is our other speaker, and Rick began his career with MoDOT in 2008 after graduating from Arkansas State in Jonesboro. He has been with MoDOT a combined 9 years. He spent 5.5 years in the construction division before working with a consulting firm and a utility contractor for another 5 years. And then Rick returned to us here at MoDOT to be a member of our team in Central Office Design, where he has worked 3.5 years in his current position as a standard specialist. Our last speaker for today is Keith Smith. Keith is a graduate of the University of Texas at San Antonio and started his career with MoDOT as a designer in the former District 2 in 1994. He then moved on to transportation planning in 1997 and to the standard section in design in 2000. Keith was an integral, he was part of our original group in 2005 and 2006 that produced the EPG. So he was one of the first creators and integral part in getting the EPG constructed as it is today. at the direction of the MoDOT director at the time, and he's instrumental in keeping it updated, popular, and a useful document that we all enjoy today. So I don't see any questions to get us started, so I'll hand it over now to Sarah.
All right, thank you, Julie, for the introduction. Appreciate that. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today for the Engineering Policy Overview webinar. We have a lot of information to share with you today. If some of the images seem small or hard to read on your computer screen, there should be an option on the left-hand side of your WebEx screen to adjust your screen view. Engineering Policy Services is the section at MoDOT within the Design Division that administers and maintains the standard specifications, standard plans, general provisions, job special provisions, and engineering policy guide. We do not administer or maintain bridge standard plans or bridge JSPs. We work with divisions and districts to develop and revise these standards, policies, and guidance. 23 CFR 625 is the federal requirement for all state DOTs to have policies, standards, and standard specifications. MoDOT partners with the Missouri Division of Federal Highway Administration to ensure all of our policies, standard plans, standard specifications meet or exceed the federal requirements. During today's webinar, you will learn where to find standard plans, standard specifications, EPG policies and guidance, and other policy documents, how to use the authoritative standard specifications, standard plans, and guidance and policies in the EPG to prepare design plan sheets, locate forms, and other necessary information for project development and completion. You will also learn how standard plans, standard specifications, JSPs, and EPG policy and guidance are revised and where to find the latest revisions. And you'll also learn why this information is important. Now I'm going to turn over to Tim to share some information on standard specifications.
Thank you, Sarah. As Sarah stated, I will be talking a little on standard specifications. So what are standard specifications? Standard specifications provide material, equipment, and construction requirements for items specified in the construction of Missouri transportation infrastructure. Specifications provide contractors, companies, inspectors, designers, and MoDOT staff with what type and quality of material to construct something out of, the quality of the workmanship that is required, methods something shall be fabricated, installed, and constructed to, testing requirements to make sure we meet these requirements. Specifications provide methods in which certain items will be measured and how they will be paid for. Why do we need these standard specifications? Well, think about if you were a designer and you had signing on your project. Right now, you just describe what sign you want, where you want it. Contractors and sign manufacturers know exactly what they need to do to provide you with that sign. Whereas if you didn't have standard specifications, you would have to provide specifications for every piece of that sign. You would have to specify what type of material the post should be made from, how strong it should be, how it should be fabricated, how it should be installed. You would have to provide requirements on everything down to the bolts, nuts, and washers. Just think how long it would take to design a project. It would also be very expensive. Right now, we have specifications for signposts, and we can get the required posts from multiple manufacturers. Without standard specifications, we'd have different requirements on every job for the same item. Standard specifications provide a proven best practice to ensure we are getting a quality product that is safe and meets our customers' needs. You can access our standard specification from the EPG and other locations, but I'm going to show you how to access our standard specifications from MoDOT's homepage. Over in the right corner, you will see Doing Business with MoDOT. If you hover your cursor over Doing Business with MoDOT, you will get the following options. Over on the right side, you will need to click on Standard Specifications, which is outlined with the red box. The page opens the Missouri Standard Specification for Highway Construction page, but you can access other standards and specifications like standard plans and job special revisions along the left side of the page. In the first table, you will find the standard specification. We publish a new spec book every year, effective July 1 of that year. The original published spec book will always be at the bottom of the table. We make quarterly updates to the spec book, and you can find the revised spec book with the revisions included above the original spec book. The most up-to-date spec book will always be at the top as we add a new line to the table with each revision. The next column over, you will find general provisions and supplemental specifications. This is where you will find what revisions were made to the spec book, but Sarah will talk more about this later. The next column provides links to the Design Standards Letter. The Design Standards Letter provides a short description of the revisions to the spec book and general provisions. I will discuss this more later. The last column provides the date when the spec book and revisions are effective. At the bottom of the specification page, you will see two tables. The first table is for the EPUB files for the current versions of the spec book. We create an EPUB file of the spec book so it can be uploaded to the iBooks and can be downloaded to our customers' electronic devices like phones, tablets, etc. You can also download these files to your desktop. It will provide you with some different views and search options. Most people probably just use the PDF file and search it. We also keep a Word file for every specification section. It makes it easier for staff to make and track changes. So if you ever propose change to a specification, you can contact me and I can provide you a Word document of the section. In the last table, you will find the archived documents going back to 2016 spec book. We get a lot of requests from lawyers on what specification was for this section on a certain date. We can go back in old spec books and find this information they need. We have more older specifications in the office, but you can easily come here and look up the information for the last 5 years. Now I'm going to turn it over to Rick Prosser, and he's going to talk about standard plans.
Thank you, Tim. I will talk a little bit about the Missouri standard plans for highway construction. The information contained in the standard plans is like the standard specifications. This is where you go to see how work is going to be done if you're going to perform work for MoDOT. Any entity is bound to engage in their work according to these standards once they enter into a contract with us. Also, like the standard specs, our standard plans are actual legal documents, and they are signed and sealed by a practicing licensed professional engineer. Typically, for us, this will be our state design engineer, state traffic engineer, and state bridge engineer. Our standards are important for all stages of our projects. For designers, you build on these standards when you produce project-specific plans. You have anything from culverts, highway signs, ditch liner, or guardrail designed for and shown on the project plans, and we have the standards for them. Contractors know how to bid and construct a project, and our construction inspection and material staff know how to ensure the projects are being built properly because we have these standards. The standards are updated and published to the website quarterly throughout the year, and a new edition is published for the July updates each year. The quarterly updates to the plans are a result of revision requests that we receive here in Engineering Policy Services. How and why these requests are made and who makes them will be discussed a little later in the webinar, but they do go through different levels of scrutiny depending on the complexity and cost associated with them before including the suggested changes into our standards. From time to time, we do still get asked for paper copies of the standard plans, but we don't distribute those hard copies anymore. However, they are kept in digital format now and can be found on MoDOT's website. From here, you can print your own copy. The standard plans are located near the standard specs that Tim talked about. Just always remember to look for Doing Business with MoDOT and choose Standards and Specifications. This does take you to the Standard and Specifications main page. To get onto the Standard Plans portion, we have to go a little farther and looking to the left under Explore this topic. Click on the link that says Standard Plans for Highway Construction. Now you are at the Standard Plans portion of MoDOT's website. This is the top of the main page. The plans are available for viewing and download in Adobe Acrobat Reader, and there are links provided throughout the site to download Adobe for free. There are also MicroStation files in the tables below that are available for download as well. And of course, you will need to have MicroStation installed if you need those. Scrolling down, you will see the tables that contain links allowing you access to the plans in a few different formats and links to the standard plan design letters as well. We will come back to this table in just a minute. Just below these tables, you will find links for special sheets, D-sheets, archived standard plans going back 4 additional years. Any older plans can still be accessed either digitally or in archives that someone would need to physically look in. For any that you need that are not on the website, just email me at the link just below the archive. Even reach out to Tim, Keith, or Sarah, and we will figure out where to find them for you. Going back to the top table, starting with the leftmost column, here's where you'll find the entire set of our most current standard plans in one PDF file, just as the heading says, and the most current being located at the top. This is the one you will want to open to download the entire set for reference or for printing. In the middle column are the links to the supplemental revisions. The supplemental revisions contain only the plan sheets that we have received updates after the July publishing and up to the date shown. The links farthest to the right in this table take you to the standard plan design letters, which will list the sheets that have been revised, as well as a short technical description of what has been revised on that particular sheet. The table below this one says individual MicroStation and PDF files, and this is where to find those. Clicking this link will take you to a page where the currently effective standard plans are kept, and you can view them a few different ways here. The top link that says effective 4/1/2021 will take you to a table of contents to access all the plans in PDF form. And the links further below will take you to a page with all the sheets in that particular section. Next slide, please. First, clicking on the top link, effective 4/1/2021. And here is that table of contents. You look through the descriptions for what you are needing and just click on the standard number to the left of the description to be taken to the PDFs of that standard. Back to the currently effective page and looking at the links below, sections 200 through 900. These pages are where you can find the MicroStation files for downloading and also PDFs of each set within the section. For an example, I picked the 500s to share because you can see the entire page on one slide, but the rest of the sections are formatted just like this one. You will find the link to all the MicroStation files at the top and links to the PDFs below. And that is how you find our Missouri Standard Plans and some quick navigation around the website. I do encourage you to look around in there if you're not familiar with it. I want to show you a plan sheet and just talk a little bit about it. All of the information found on the plan sheet is showing us exactly how our roadway facilities are to be constructed. It's very important to understand every detail, dimension, call out, or table on any plan sheet pertaining to a project you're working on. This is a newer sheet. It was the addition of a third sheet to 90270. Here you can see the main detail titled span wire signing and some details with additional information. Near the bottom right are the general notes and the title block there in the bottom corner. Looking at the title block here, just along the top, you see the MoDOT emblem and the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission. These are our plans. Then the signature and seal of the engineer is shown beside the title. Along the bottom is the date effective and date prepared, then the plan number, usually followed by a letter, and the sheet number beside that. The effective date will tell you the last time the particular sheet has been revised, and it may be different than, say, sheet 1 or 2 within the same set. With a minor change, the entire set won't get a new date, just the one sheet, but with a major change, each sheet within that set will get a new date. A similar thing with the plan number and the letter associated with it. For a minor revision, the letter will not be updated, but each time a major revision is done, one that changes the way we do business, and we need to draw attention to it, the letter updates as well. So this one has went from 90270 and had no letter behind it when first published, and is currently at 90270Q, having received a major revision that many times. I do take care of our standard plans and the revisions to them, and also that portion of our website. So if you ever have any questions about anything standard plans related, don't hesitate to give me a call or send an email. A link to my email address is provided at the bottom of the pages in the standard plans portion of the website. And at this time, I will pass things along to Keith so he can talk about our engineering policy guide.
Thank you, Rick. The Engineering Policy Guide, or EPG, is the single reference for all MoDOT engineering and engineering-related guidance. It presents MoDOT policies, procedures, and guidance for the planning, design, construction, and maintenance of roadways and related facilities. It includes technical topics of right-of-way, bridge, traffic, and materials. Unlike the specs, the standard plans, and the JSPs, which are contractually binding, the EPG is not contractually binding. Should a conflict exist between the EPG and, say, a spec, a standard plan, or a JSP and a contract, the contract document rules. Everyone who has seen the EPG's table of contents on the side of every article can tell that the EPG's guidance is numbered to reflect as closely as possible the bid items, which is also the same numbering system for specs in the spec book, the Missouri Standard Specifications for Highway Construction. Now, since the EPG uses the same numbering system as the specifications, the EPG does not present its information in documents called sections, because that could be confused with the specs. For instance, Section 903 is the long-established way to refer to the spec about highway signing. The non-contractual information about signing in the Engineering Policy Guide is referred to as EPG 903 Highway Signing, or just EPG 903 for short. To avoid confusion with the spec, do not refer to EPG 903.5 regulatory signs as Section 903.5 or even EPG Section 903.5. Just put EPG in front of the number and call it EPG 903.5. That'll do. Would it be useful to you to view what an EPG article looked like in the past? At the top of every article is the View History tab that provides for you all the previous versions of that EPG article. Just hover your icon over the date in question, click the date, and you will be shown exactly what the article looked like on that date. Also, versions of the article from any two dates can be compared, and their differences shown on a line-by-line basis. What was removed from the older version will be shown on the left, and what was added to the newer version will be shown on the right. On the article's history page, the revisions are categorized as major or minor. A bold M indicates a minor revision. That is, the policy was not substantially changed. Many revisions will also have a brief explanation. There are many ways to access the EPG. The districts have a link to it on their SharePoint sites. Goodness, you can type EPG MoDOT into DuckDuckGo or Google, and it will come right up. My favorite way is to just hit my browser and click the EPG icon in the MoDOT's SharePoint site. The EPG is, of course, readily available on MoDOT's website too. Just scroll down to near the bottom of the website. And now, let's go back to Engineering Policy Services Supervisor, Sarah Kleinschmidt.
For this webinar, we are using an example set of plans from a real project. We chose this project because it has almost every facet of a project, from plan profile sheets to temporary traffic control sheets to cross-section sheets. The only elements missing is signals, lighting, and a bridge. I do want to thank Jim Burgess, who did just recently retire, and the rest of the design team in Kansas City District for the use of this project's plan sheets. To start things off, we will look at the title page. The title page introduces the project. It tells you where the project is located by identifying the county, the road, and project limits. It also includes a project location map. This box provides some design information such as the roadway volume, percentage of trucks, the roadway speed, and classification. The location on this title block is reserved for right-of-way and boundary line information. This next block provides symbology information for the plan sheets. This is particularly useful for utility identifications. There is additional logistics information provided in the length of project box. This box identifies where station equations occur when stationing is used. It also lists exemptions in a project, like a bridge deck that does not get resurfaced. This area provides the route, district, sheet number, county, the job number, and bridge number. When the project is completed, the project office will include the contract ID and the project number in the as-built plans. Our main focus today will be on the plan sheets, index of sheets, or basically the table of contents. We will discuss each type of plan sheet and where you can find the information in the EPG, the standard plans, and standard specifications for developing that portion of the project. As we go through the different aspects of plan sheet development and show you different specifications, standards, and EPG articles, a good starting point is EPG 237 contract plans. In each EPG 237 article, 237.1 through 237.14, there are additional links to other pertinent EPG articles, figures, specifications, and standards. I'm going to turn this back over to Keith to start us off with typical sections. Keith?
Thank you, Sarah. After J4P 3212's title sheet comes the typical section sheets. Typical section sheets show details and complete dimensions for proposed surfaces, bases, shoulders, ditches, and cut and fill slopes. You can see that the proposed pavement drawings are on the right and have been boxed in red. The existing typical section information is on the left. The existing typical section information may be shown or summarized in a list on the typical section sheet when it is deemed necessary. So, where does one go in the standards for information about typical sheets? EPG 237.4.10 would be a good place to start. It provides general information about what information to include on these sheets and how to get started producing the drawings. Links in EPG 237.4.10 lead to useful general discussions about typical sections of the roadway in EPG 231. Links in EPG 237.4.10 also include a chart of how users with access to ProjectWise can access drawings. EPG 237.13.1 Design Contract Plans provides guidance for filing typical sheets and for all the contract plans. This file naming convention is a vital part of the ProjectWise document management system. The EPG is not the only standard addressing typical sheets. The standard plans also include a number of typical sheets. Standard Plan 203.40 is available for contractually binding information about on and off ramps, whereas Standard Plan 203.41 is available for on and off ramps for 28-foot wide pavement roadways having 6:1 4 slopes. And Standard Plan 203.50 presents the contractually binding information for median openings on divided highways. In J4P 3212, following the typical sheets, are the quantity sheets. The quantity sheets summarize all the quantities from the plan profile sheets of a project. So where does one go in the standards for information about quantity sheets? EPG 237.3 would be a good place to start. It provides general information about what information to include on these sheets and how the district gets started producing the drawings. The D2BS sheet is, of course, one of the D sheets. The D sheets are available on the MoDOT Standards and Specifications website. Just scroll down and the PDF and DGN files are readily available. This Excel file, referenced in EPG 237.3, is available for loading the 2BS sheet. The designer enters the info and hits the Run button near the top left. This opens the 2BS file in MicroStation. In MicroStation, there is a button to pick up the Excel sheet's information and paste it into the desired MicroStation file. Moving on in J4P 3212, plan profile sheets are after the quantities sheets. Of course, these important sheets show overhead and side views of the project and convey a general overview of the project by showing how the project interacts with the existing features. Just as you would expect, EPG 237 contract plans also presents guidance for plan and profile sheets. EPG 237.4 plan profile sheets provides guidance for everything from general notes to the scale for these sheets. The EPG is not the only standard addressing plan profile sheets. Standard Plan 203.00 presents plan profile drawings for excavation and embankments. While three standard plans, Standard Plan 203.20, 203.21, and 203.22 are available for super elevations, spirals, and widenings, should they be needed in the project. I'm going to turn to Tim to continue with right-of-way sheets. Tim?
The next sheets I will talk about from the sheet index is the right-of-way plans. Here's one of the right-of-way plans. You will see that there is a lot going on here. All the offsets and stationing for each right-of-way and easement point fills up the page. The orange arrow is pointing to the existing right-of-way line, which is dashed, and the red arrow is pointing to the right-of-way line, which is solid. With the intersection improvements for this project, they had to acquire a new right-of-way. The minimum width of right-of-way for each project is that necessary to accommodate construction and provide proper maintenance of the roadway without an undue number of jogs in the right-of-way. Another part of the right-of-way plans is easements. You can see here the orange arrow is pointing to the temporary easement and the red arrow is pointing to the permanent easement, highlighted by the red box. This highlighted by the red box is a list of areas of any new right-of-way or easements we have purchased from the property owner. For Michael and Judy McGee, we purchased about 1/10 of an acre right-of-way for this project. Right-of-way plans will have this for every property owner along the project. Another thing I would like to point out is if you look at the intersection roads, you will see the right-of-way kind of jets out at each road. That is because we have enough right-of-way, because we have to have enough right-of-way for intersection sight distance. So when a vehicle is sitting on the side road, they will be able to see far enough down the road to safely turn out from these intersecting roads. We are required to own these areas so we can maintain them to keep them clear of any vegetation that would restrict the sight distance. Most of you are probably familiar with the different classifications of access control. However, what is important for you to know from a right-of-way standpoint is that access is property right, and to limit or control this access to property must be purchased. For a permanent easement, we require this area for the use of a specific purpose and is intended to be reused in the future, but only for that specific purpose. For a temporary easement, we require this area for a specific time frame, which is usually the duration of the project. A right of entry is permission to enter onto the property. This can be for a specific period of time and for a specific purpose. However, this can only be used to access the area. If any work or dirt movement is to take place, a temporary easement needs to be acquired. To convey property, there are different types of deeds. A quitclaim deed is used to convey excess parcels. A general warranty deed is used to purchase property for our projects. Other deeds include, but are not limited to, special warranty deeds, deed of trust, and beneficiary deed. Within the deed is a legal description. This is used to legally define the area and conveyance. This is done by a professional land surveyor and will be recorded as part of the deed at the recorder's office. The legal description includes meets and bounds as well as station and offsets and a centerline description of the route. You can find more information about right-of-way in EPG 236. EPG 236.13 can provide you guidance on developing your right-of-way plans. They also have right-of-way plans checklist for you to use. I'm not going over all the steps of this timeline, but I wanted to point out acquiring a right-of-way is a lengthy and time-consuming process. A right-of-way cannot be purchased in a couple of weeks. It's more like a couple of years. It is very important for designers to get their environmental clearances, right-of-way plans completed in a date as early as they can so right-of-way can start their process for acquiring a right-of-way. It is important not to make changes to your right-of-way plans, as every time you do, this last part in orange starts over. The next sheets I will talk about from the sheet index is reference and coordinate points sheets. Reference points are prominent, easy located points in the terrain used to define a location of another point. The purpose of reference points is to provide locations to reestablish primary points. On this reference sheet, for this set of plans, there are 2 control points. These control points are essential for establishing and reestablishing survey points. When I worked in construction on the 179 project here in Jeff City, we had a control point next to Idlewood Bridge that we would begin at each morning to calibrate our equipment and to make sure everything was working correctly. These points aren't just for when construction is going on. It is also for the next person that comes along. Someone on a future project will be able to set up on that point and easily reestablish any point from the 179 project. You can find information in EPG on reference points in Articles 237 and 239. 237.4 provides information on creating reference point sheets, and 239 states reference points sheets should be included in the final plans. Here's the coordinate point sheet for this project. In order to aid in the reestablishment of the alignment for the project, a listing of significant alignment and control points with their MoDOT modified state plan coordinates are included in the plans. You can find information in EPG Article 237.4 on what information to include on your coordinate point sheet and what points should be included. With each point, you should include the sheet number, station, location, offset, northern coordinate, eastern coordinate, description of the significant points, and GPK point ID. Coordinate points should be shown in feet to 2 decimal places, but may be shown up to 5 decimal places. The type of points that should be included are beginning and ending station coordinates of the project, alignment points, major centerline intersections, survey points used by survey crews, and other significant points. I wanted to point out last year that they revised the coordinate sheet and put a new coordinate sheet in the design seed file for your use, which you can see an example of it here. You can find this design seed files for the coordinate point sheet, the Excel file for coordinate sheet, and the reference point sheet and ProjectWise under seed files design. You can also find additional information about reference and coordinate points on MoDOT, on what MoDOT should provide and what is required by the contractor on a project in Spec Book Section 627, Contract Surveying and Staking. The next sheet I will talk about from the sheet index is special sheets. Special sheets are usually included in a plan set if the project contains areas that require special attention to some construction elements. Construction details that are not covered in the design plans or elsewhere in the plan set must be shown on the special sheet. Here's a special sheet for this project. You can see they have shown the curve returns for this project. You can show almost anything that is needed on special sheets. Most of the information you will find on special sheets will be in EPG 237.4.11. It states it is preferred that the information is shown on the plan profile sheets, but can be used to enlarge details or show details that cannot be shown on the plan profile sheets. It also states lighting, signals, signing, and traffic control plans for a project may also be shown on special sheets. So there are numerous uses for special sheets, but there should be an effort to include all the necessary details in the plan profile sheets. The next sheets I will talk about from the sheet index is traffic control sheets. I will be mostly talking about temporary traffic control for this project. Temporary traffic control plans will accompany all plans for a construction project. The temporary traffic control plans provide guidance on maintaining traffic through a work zone. There's a lot of information in the spec book, standard plans, and EPG on temporary traffic control. I won't go into all of it in detail, but will highlight some areas. In spec book section 616, temporary traffic control, it provides specifications that work shall consist of furnishing, installing, operating, maintaining, cleaning, relocations, and removing temporary traffic control devices, equipment, and removal of relocation and covering and uncovering of existing signs and other traffic control devices in accordance with the contract documents or as directed by the engineer. Section 1063, temporary traffic control devices, covers specifications for material to be used for temporary traffic control devices. For example, you can go here to see what type of material channelizers or signs should be made from. There are several other specifications that also apply to traffic control and temporary traffic control and traffic control. 109, measurement and pavement. 617, concrete traffic barrier. 901, highway lighting. 902, traffic signals. 903, highway signing. 1042, highway sign material. 1091, lighting equipment. 1092, signal equipment. Standard Plan 616.10, temporary traffic control devices, provide details for sign mounting, post installation details, channelizers and direction indicator barricade, type 3 movable barricade, delineator changeable message sign, type 3 object markers, warning signs, warning guide, and regulatory signs, sign layouts, traffic control for waterways. There are several other standard plan sheets that apply to temporary traffic control and traffic control. 612.20, sand-filled impact attenuators. 617.20, temporary concrete traffic barrier. 901 through 901.85, lighting. 902 through 902.80, traffic signals. 903.1 through 903.60, signing and overhead sign trusses. The EPG has a lot of information to provide guidance on temporary traffic control. EPG Article 616, temporary traffic control, will provide you with the most of the guidance you will need. As you see here, 616 covers a lot of different topics, from temporary traffic control elements to work zone capacity, queue, travel delay, to typical applications. You can easily access typical applications or TAs on the main page of EPG 616. There are typical applications for maintenance and typical applications for design, construction, and materials. If you're designing temporary traffic control for a project being let by MoDOT, you will want to follow the guidance from the design, construction, and material TAs. You can see here the EPG provides TAs depending on where the work area will be, work outside of the shoulder, work on the shoulder, work within the travelway of a two-lane highway, work within the travelway of an urban street, work within the travelway at an intersection on sidewalks, and work within the travelway of a freeway or expressway. The TAs also provide several applications for different operations. For example, work on the shoulder on a divided or undivided highways, lane shift on two-lane roadway, flagger control, resurfacing, or movement operation, one-lane, two-way operation, and several other applications. I believe there are a total of 56 TAs. The TAs only go up to TA 51, but there are several that have a version A, B, C, etc. Here's an example of what the TAs look like. This is a TA 10 flagger control, resurfacing, or movement operation, one-lane, two-way operation. It provides you with what signs should be used, how they should be set up, and provides notes. You don't use these for your traffic control. You would use the guidance from these TAs to design your traffic control for your individual project. Here's a sheet from the traffic control for this project. You'll see is a roadway closure. If you knew nothing about traffic control and wanted to know what you needed to include on the temporary traffic control plans for highway closure on a two-lane highway like this project, you would look at TA highway closure. It will provide a lot of the information you will need for temporary traffic control plans for this operation. Here's another sheet from the temporary traffic control plan that shows the signing at the beginning and end of the project. TA 50 beginning and end project signing will provide you with a lot of the guidance you will need for this. I've shown these examples to illustrate that TAs located in the EPG provide a lot of the information for different operations you will need to lay out your traffic control. Again, these TAs should not be used as your traffic control, but use the guidance from them for your temporary traffic control. These TAs will not cover all, but if you have an operation you need help laying out the traffic control, you will need to contact your district traffic department and they will be able to help you. I could go on and on about temporary traffic control, but I hope you realize there's a lot of information in the spec book, standard plans, and EPG that can help you with temporary traffic control. Now I'm going to turn it over to Sarah.
Next on the list is erosion control plan sheets. Erosion and sediment control is a very broad topic. It includes which best management practices, BMPs, to use, permanent versus temporary BMPs, stormwater control, and pollution prevention, and the development of an erosion sediment control site map or plan. What is the difference between erosion control and sediment control? Erosion is actually the process of wind, water, and other elements wearing down soil and/or rock. Sediment is the eroded particles. Sedimentation is when those eroded particles come to rest somewhere. Anytime soil is disturbed on a project, there is potential for erosion and the movement of sediment. The goal is to keep sediment on MoDOT right-of-way and preferably within the project limits. This is accomplished through the use of erosion and sediment control measures. This set of plan sheets shows temporary erosion control BMPs. Just to zoom in on the plan sheet some, you'll want to include a legend for the different erosion control BMPs. In this set of plan sheets, you can see how the designer has placed alternate ditch checks, highlighted in yellow, a sediment trap, highlighted in green, and silt fence, highlighted in pink. The Federal Clean Water Act, along with Missouri Department of Natural Resources, regulate erosion and sediment control through required permits and a Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan, or SWIP, which we will talk about soon. EPG 237.4.12 tells you basically you have to have erosion control plan sheets if there's going to be any disturbed areas within the project limits. However, EPG 806 is where you really find the information regarding the different types of erosion control measures to use and when to use them. Here I have a tied concrete block system lining a ditch as a means of permanent erosion control. We also have an example of silt fence capturing sediment as a temporary erosion control measure. I mentioned the Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan, or SWIP. I'm not going to go into detail of the SWIP because it is well written, and you can find that in EPG 806.8. Basically, we are responsible for keeping stream water and adjacent property water clear from sediment pollution on all projects. When the area of disturbed soil is 1 acre or more, then we switch to the SWIP for pollution prevention. The SWIP contains some of the same information provided in other EPG articles. The SWIP provides information on the requirements of the statewide operating permit from Missouri Department of Natural Resources and project-specific erosion and sediment control site map. Some information is provided in EPG articles 806.1 through 806.3 and in the SWIP, which is 806.8. I'm not going to go through all the erosion and sediment control BMPs because there is another webinar for erosion and sediment control on mo.u that you can watch. I will just touch on some of the most commonly used BMPs. Let's go over some permanent erosion control measures. J4P 3212 didn't have any interception ditches, but interception ditches play an important role in erosion control and prevention. Interception ditches are special ditches to capture the runoff on slopes and redirect the runoff to another ditch. These ditches are typically rock-lined. Interception ditches are often shown on the plan sheets, but can also be shown on the erosion control sheets. In Standard Plan 203.00, the interception ditch is shown with a levee. Permanent seeding and mulch follows temporary seeding and mulch. All disturbed areas of the project shall be seeded except sodded areas, surfaced areas like the paved roadway, and solid rock. Hydro seeding is often used to apply permanent seeding and mulch on large areas and slopes, as shown on the right. Sediment basins can be temporary or permanent. When left in place as a permanent BMP, the slopes have to be lined with rock riprap. Sediment basins are like pools that water with sediment flow into. The water is pooled long enough for the sediment to settle to the bottom. Or because the basin outlet is rock lined, the sediment is trapped when the water continues to flow out. The sediment basin on the right is from an actual MoDOT project, not our example project. The image on the left is from Standard Plan 806.10. Rock ditch liner is used to line ditches to prevent erosion from high velocity runoff. Hydraulic analysis and open channel flow computations are used to determine the shear stress in the ditch. If the shear stress is greater than that of a grass line ditch, then rock ditch lining is used. The different types of rock ditch liner are also found in EPG 750.6.3.3. Our sample project J4P 3212 does have turf reinforcement mat on the project. Turf reinforcement mats may be used on steep slopes, slope areas with concentrated flow, or in channels and ditches. An example of how turf reinforced mats is used is on line ditches is shown on the right. While rock ditch liner is a permanent erosion control measure for ditches, rock ditch checks are a temporary measure. Rock ditch checks are used to slow high velocity runoff and trap sediment. When construction is completed, rock ditch checks can be spread out in the established ditch and function like rock ditch lining. Rock ditch checks can be left in permanently. However, they could become obstacles within the clear zone and should be avoided as permanent BMPs if possible. Like rock ditch checks, alternate ditch checks also used as a temporary means of slowing high velocity runoff, usually for smaller drainage areas. Alternate ditch checks can be triangular silt checks, filter socks or logs, and sandbags. Straw bales, straw-filled wattles, and geotextile silt fence cannot be used as a ditch check. Project J4P 3212 uses multiple alternate ditch checks for erosion and sediment control. Sediment traps perform like sediment basins, only they are temporary. Notice how in J4P 3212, the sediment trap, highlighted in green, is at the end of the ditch and the water flows towards it. This is so it can trap the eroded water and sediment if it gets past the ditch checks. Silt fence is used as a perimeter control for the construction project. It does have some limitations and should be used accordingly. J4P 3212 uses silt fence just beyond the slope limit, yet inside the right-of-way or easement. Do not forget to include sediment removal in your projects when you use erosion and sediment control BMPs that capture sediment. When 1 acre or more of land is disturbed, a project-specific site map for erosion and sediment control measures is required. EPG 806.8.3 provides guidance for developing and maintaining a site map. It is recommended that 2 site maps be created, one for the existing site topography with outfall and perimeter protection BMPs, and a second one for final project grade and BMPs that are envisioned during project construction and upon completion of final grading. The location of design BMPs will be illustrated on the plan sheets. However, the exact location of BMPs will be determined in the field by the engineer or inspector. Sample site plans are also available in EPG 806.8.3. The next set of plan sheets is signing plan sheets. EPG 237.4.15 will direct you to EPG 903.2.25 for designing signing plan sheets and quantities. It really is a lot to consider when designing signs. Will the new sign go on existing truss or other structure? Will the sign require structural beams or posts? If a sign is to be mounted on a bridge or other structure, it is important to have the bridge division involved early on in the conversation. EPG 903.2.25 has flowcharts to help you navigate through the signing process. There's also much more to signing plan sheets than just plan sheets. They also include D sheets for quantities and data sheets, and there are also cross-section sheets as well. We will get into those in a moment. Since there is more than just the plan sheets for signing, there's a certain order they go in. First to order in the plan sheets, our example project does include signing. Second in the order is the tabulation quantity sheets, D29 and D30. D29 provides the sign information, the sign number and location, whether it is a pipe post, structural steel post, U-channel post, or prefabricated square steel tube post, and their lengths, backing bar information, and footings. All the totals are at the bottom of the sheet. Next in order would be the D30 sheet. Since this project is using existing signs in new locations, only the D29 sheet is being used. The D30 sheet is where you would indicate the type of sign, flat sheet or structural, and the square footage for each sign. Then the totals are provided at the bottom of the D sheet. After the D30 sheet comes the D31 sheet. It is for special sign details. Then D32 sheet is for cantilever and butterfly box trusses. Then D33 sheet, it is for overhead span trusses. And then D34 sheet is for tubular trusses. After the D sheet comes the cross-section sheets for the signs. The cross-sections show the station or log mile, location, and the offset from the roadway. Each permanently installed sign should have a cross-section location. To determine the type and number of signposts, you'll want to refer to EPG 903.3. There is a link to open the signpost selection guide. This is an Excel spreadsheet that you input the sign size, and the spreadsheet will calculate the signpost size and the number of posts needed. The 2 standard plans you will use most for standard plans 903.02 and 903.03. You will use 903.2 primarily for backing bar information. You will use standard plan 903.03 mostly for post installation details and sign offsets. Standard plan 903.3 is also where you find delineator requirements. Standard Specifications Section 903 provides the method of measurement for posts, sign area, and footings. This specification also provides the basis of payment, which also corresponds with the bid items. Highway signing is governed by the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, or the MUTCD. Part 2 of the MUTCD provides standards, guidance, and options for permanent signing. Part 2 does not include work zone signs. The EPG, standard plans, and standard specifications all meet or exceed the signing requirements for the MUTCD. Pavement marking sheets. Now on to those pavement marking sheets. Pavement marking plan sheets provide details regarding the color and size of the pavement marking. It will also provide details where to start and stop the pavement marking and whether it is permanent or temporary. EPG 620 provides general pavement marking guidance. When permanent pavement marking is provided in the contract, all major routes receive high build paint with type L beads, and all minor routes receive waterborne paint with type P beads, and all intersection markings are durable marking material. EPG 620 also provides further guidance for permanent pavement marking with a flow chart. This flow chart provides the widths of those pavement markings. EPG 620.1 provides further information on the material of the different pavement markings, guidance on temporary pavement marking, and even provides pictures for what the permanent pavement markings should look like for different roadways. A picture says 1,000 words. Standard Plan 620 provides additional requirements for permanent pavement marking. Temporary pavement marking is a little trickier. It not only includes temporary paint, but it also includes temporary tape and temporary raised pavement markers. Standard Plan 62010 provides the standard layout for edge lines, center lines, and shoulder markings, as well as the required colors. Don't forget about pavement marking removal. Depending on the project and/or the work zone, sometimes the existing pavement marking has to be removed. When a project is constructed in stages, the temporary pavement marking may need to be removed too. EPG 620.1 also provides guidance for pavement marking removal. Section 620 in the standard specification provides requirements for contractors, but also provides specifications for method of measure and basis of payment for permanent temporary pavement marking paint, tape, raised pavement markings, and durable markings. The MUTCD also governs pavement marking. Part 3 of the MUTCD provides standards, guidance, and options for permanent and temporary pavement markings. The EPG standard plans and standard specifications all meet or exceed the pavement marking requirements of the MUTCD. This project, our example project, does not have lighting or signal plans. If this project did have lighting and signal plan sheets, they would go just before the signing plan sheets. EPG 237.4.15 will direct you to EPG 901.10 for designing lighting plan sheets and quantities. EPG 901.10 is primarily about designing for cable conduit and rigid conduit size. There are 6 different sets of standard plans for lighting. They are all in the 901 series. Standard plans 901.00 and 901.01 provide details for poles, foundations, and appurtenances for 30-foot and 45-foot pole heights. Standard Plan 901.02 provides details for cable, conduit, and trenching. Standard Plan 901.30 provides details for control stations, while Standard Plan 901.80 is about power supplies. And last but certainly not least, Standard Plan 901.85 provides the symbols for use for lighting plan sheets. You can also select these different symbols and line types in MicroStation. Section 901 in the standards specification provides additional information primarily for contractors. This section requires contractors to meet other national electrical specifications and codes. All projects containing permanent highway lighting or traffic signal items or temporary lighting and signal items retained by the Commission require an equipment and materials list, or a D15 form, for the contractor to fill out. This form is to be included in the project's electronic deliverables. See EPG 237.7 for a link to the D15 form and cover letter, and EPG 237.9.3.3.3 for electronic deliverables information. Like lighting plans, EPG 237.4.15 will direct you to 902.15 for preparing traffic signal plan sheets. EPG 902.15 will walk you through the process of preliminary layout, location of the signals, bases, controllers, and power supplies, detectors, whether you should use loops, video, or radar, pull boxes, conduit, and cables. There are a lot of standard plans for signals, even more than lighting. Moving on with signal plan sheets, the standard plans provide details for signal head mounting, as well as signal head louvers and visors, accessible pedestrian signal requirements, details for controller cabinets, and conduit locations. They also provide details on pull boxes, concrete and preformed, telephone interconnects, and post bases. The standard plans also provide details for tubular steel posts and mast arms. I do want to note that square or rectangular shaped posts for signals and lighting too are currently not standard. Standard Plan 90240 also includes the structural design load requirements. There is also loop detection details and span wire details. And just like lighting standard plans, Signal Standard Plans has a list of symbols to use on your plan sheets. In addition to the plan sheets for signals, you also have to include D sheets. D sheets can be found on MoDOT's website at modot.org/D sheets. This example is of D37A. D37A details the quantities and locations for pull boxes, bases, posts, arms, and indications. D37B is used to show the conduit and cable types and their quantities. D37C is for items relating to the signal controller for the power supply, cabinet, coordination interface, detectors, and load switches. D37D is for the schematic of the conduit and cable installations. You also have D38 sheets. D38A through E are used for traffic phasing and color sequencing. For both lighting and signals, be sure to work closely with your district utilities engineer and your district traffic specialist. Signals are also covered by the MUTCD. Part 4 of the MUTCD provides standards, guidance, and options for signals. Next, Rick will talk about culvert sections.
Thank you, Sarah. And as she mentioned, the next sheet we'll look at from our index are the culvert sections. Taking a look at these, we actually start with the culvert's plan view on the plan sheets Keith mentioned earlier. This view shows where the culvert lays according to its surroundings, and here it is shown on the left and called out as a new 18-inch Group C pipe with P1 in parentheses. Then, looking at the actual culvert sections on the right and locating P1, you see that you are looking at how this culvert lays according to its longitudinal section view. Enlarged, you can see that this view provides the station and offsets, as well as flow line elevation at the flared-in sections. Also shown is the length and size of the pipe required, the percent grade, skew angle, and even the quantity and type of excavation that is to be performed. Culverts are covered in our standard specifications in Division 700, specifically Section 724 through Section 735 lower on the left. You can see right at the beginning of 724 here is a table showing our Group C pipe along with others, and this is where you need to look for information about the culvert type, the materials allowed, and installation methods pertaining to your particular culvert. As far as standard plans, The 700 section contains detailed plans for all of our different culvert configurations and types. And if you've ever looked, there are a lot of box culverts. Sections lower on the page pertain to the Group C pipe in this project, such as 726.30, detailing rigid culvert installation methods. Tables are included for the pipe diameter and fill height, embedding and compaction requirement for the culverts, as well as a cambered flow line detail, also trench and embankment installation details. EPG 237, which discusses contract plans, and specifically 237.4.13 gives detailed information that is useful for interpreting the culvert section sheet, as well as exactly what they should contain and look like from a design standpoint. Next in our index are cross sections. Our cross sections are generated from within MicroStation using geometry from the plan sheets. On this slide is sheet 1 from our project. Here you can see at the bottom right, this is showing that the sections starting at station 10 plus 21.8, and they are taken at the 50-foot interval points after that. Looking a little closer at station 11 plus 50 at the top, we can see that the sections show exactly what is going on at this location. Existing ground is shown as a dashed line across the section, and proposed grade is shown here as the solid line running across the bottom. Key points are shown along the existing and proposed elevation lines, showing slopes and ditches. Also, the grade of the slopes is shown. Cut and fill for a job are calculated with cross sections, and it is shown here along the very bottom, a cut of 451 cubic yards and fill of 0 at this section. Cross sections are project-specific sheets, but we do have standards for how they are produced and what they contain. Standard Plan 20310 shows some key points in interpreting the sections, and this is the information that should be on the sections as we saw in the slides above. Locations of the slope stake point, ditch point, shoulder point, project center line, and so on. You can also see the proposed and finished grades shown here. EPG 237.14 provides guidance on electronic design data and drafting requirements that MoDOT has for these and other plan sheets. Next slide, please. Regardless of whether they are produced internally or by consultants for use on our projects, they obviously need to be formatted the same. Here we see it is required that they be provided in Power Geopack drawing files containing no other design data and submitted for, but not limited to, earthwork sections, entrance sections, and super elevation transition sections. The next sheets we will discuss are the water main relocation plans and utilities in general. Often when we design a project, it will be in conflict with an existing utility that will need to be relocated. The local governments that own the utilities have often adopted standards and specifications of their own, and they will develop their own project-specific plans, often employing a local consulting engineering firm. Looking at sheet 1 of the water main relocation plans, you can see they look just a little different, and it's hard to see on the slide, but the title block at the lower right says that the Independence Water Department has put out these plans for a 12-inch water main relocation. The entire project is shown in this plan view along the center of the sheet, and you can see at the top there is a materials list, and along the bottom of the sheet are some detailed notes. Zooming in here on the left, you can see the level of detail shown at the tie-in, calling out a blow-off valve at station 0, gate valve at 0 plus 6, and in the notes on the right, you can see examples of the local government's own requirements. The very first note shows materials and construction shall conform with City of Independence, Missouri standard for water main installation. And the last one specifies that new fire hydrants be painted orange with black nozzle caps and chain, even specifying the type of paint. On the next slide are some more details from the water main plans. These are more of the standards adopted by the locality what they specify to keep their system uniform. We do have guidance for when utilities are within our projects and right-of-way. There are sections in the spec book and EPG that cover our responsibilities and offer some information. On the main page of the website again, I won't show it this time, but remember, if you click or hover over Doing Business with MoDOT, that we have seen a few times, locate Utility Resources to find the page shown. Looking again under Explore This Topic to the left are some useful links if you need this information. And clicking on Engineering Policy Guide links will take you to another page of resources. The links to EPG 643 have a lot of information that covers utility procedures, including status and liability acceptance, local utility adjustments, public and private, as well as policy, standards and regulations, all the way to railroads. Clicking on EPG 643, Utility Procedures, brings you to the next slide. Within EPG 643 is that information for anyone that has a utility within their project. The links just to the left of the photo shown, and then again at the bottom, mirror what was in the last slide to take you on into more articles should you need to access that information as well. In our standard specifications, section 105.7 through 105.7.8 discuss the relationships between MoDOT, utility owners, and contractors and what is expected of each party. In 105.7, here at the top, it states that utility installation and relocation shall be made in accordance with 7 CSR 10-3. And you can see that Division 10, Chapter 3 regulates utility and private line location and relocation. This document within our state code of regulations is a resource for us to draw our policy and guidance from for dealing with utilities. EPG 603 actually does discuss water line installation. Within this article are guidelines for construction and materials inspection, as well as sampling and testing information. And just to mention, for design and construction as well, we do have our district utility engineers as a resource for project managers, designers, construction and material staff that has to deal with any utility. The last section on plan sheets will be about bridge drawings. While our project does not have any bridge construction or rehabilitation, many of them will, so we can look into where to find this type of information. Our bridge division keeps up with their own bridge standard drawings and forms. A project containing bridges or bridge work will also contain job special provisions for performing the work within the contract. Again, from MoDOT.org, we will either hover or click on Doing Business with MoDOT and look for bridge standard drawings from the drop-down here at the top left, or find bridge standard drawings link as you see here at the bottom. Once you are at the bridge standard drawings page, you will see some general information presented, and here along the left side are links under Explore This Topic to take you to drawings and information specific to approach slabs, barriers, bearings, bill of reinforcing steel, every component of our bridges and their details. For example, I have clicked on bearings and the table shown has come up. As with our main standard plans, the bridge drawings are also presented in both PDF and DGN format for MicroStation. Clicking on the PDF link for Type C bearings for steel girders and stringers here at the top, you will find the plan sheet with details and notes for these Type C bearings. This is exactly what is required for the Type C bearings, and if you were to need the DGN to open it in MicroStation, you would just need to return and click the DGN link. Going back to the main bridge page and then looking for standard forms at the bottom, you'll be taken to EPG 101 standard forms. And here in EPG 101, you can locate and click on the link at the top or the one below to find some general forms and also bridge forms related to design. Those links will bring you to these forms shown starting on the top left with a bridge division memo, and all the way to a vertical clearance design exception form here on the bottom right. All of these are provided to keep everything up to our standards and provide documentation, whether a project is being worked on internally or by consultants. Looking in the standard specifications, we can find information ranging from removals of bridges and scarification of a bridge deck on the bottom left here in Division 200. Then in Division 700 on the right, you will find information on drilled shafts for bridges, load-bearing piles, and even the concrete masonry construction that is performed when building our bridges and structures. That is the end of our discussion on plan sheets, and I will now get you back to Tim to discuss JSPs.
All right. Well, Rick wrapped up the plan sheet part of this project, but now we are going to look at another very important part of the project, and that is the job special provisions, also known as JSPs. What are JSPs and why do we need them? Special provisions are included in the contract as required to define work or procedures not covered in the standard specification and as necessary to supplement or modify items in the standard specifications. As it says at the top of the screen, job special provisions shall prevail over general special provisions whenever in conflict therewith. So if there's ever a question on an item, if they should follow the JSP or standard specifications, they should follow the JSPs as it prevails over the standard specifications. EPG 237.5 special provisions provides a lot of guidance on JSPs. JSPs are usually prepared by the district to cover items of work unique to the specific project and not adequately explained on the plan or in the standard specifications. There are certain JSPs that are required on every contract. In EPG 237.5.3, required job special provisions, you will provide guidance on the required JSPs. The first JSP in every contract is the general state or general federal JSP. This provision tells the contractor whether a project is to be constructed under federal or state requirements. The second JSP is contract liquidated damages. This provision tells the contractor when they may begin work on the project, when they have to complete the work, and what liquidated damages will be assessed if they fail to complete the work on time. This JSP should not be included in JOCs. The third JSP is work zone traffic management. This provision covers traffic management situations not covered in standard specification. This provision is not included in JOCs. Utilities JSP. This JSP tells the contractor the contact information for each utility and the status of any known utility adjustments. This JSP is required on any project with a utility adjustment. Project contact JSP is JSP. This JSP tells the bidder who to contact at MoDOT regarding questions about the project. This provision is included in all projects. Fertilizing and seed mixtures. All disturbed areas are fertilized, limed, and either seeded or sodded, except for surface areas, solid rock, and slopes consisting primarily of broken rock. Supplemental revision JSP. This JSP contains revisions to standard specifications that have been implemented into the supplemental specification revision. This provision is included in all projects when it contains specification revisions. You will also need to draft a JSP for all 99 pay item numbers unless they are modification of a standard or non-standard item number where the modification can clearly be defined on the plans. You can find the standard plans out on the JSP SharePoint site. This is where you can find all the standard JSPs, the non-standard JSPs, the LPA JSPs, and the JSP packages for JOCs, CLC, and seal coat projects. If you look under the standard JSPs, you will find we have set up a roadway JSP template. You can see we provide a template that provides you with 6 JSPs that are required on all projects. You will notice that all these JSPs have numbers behind them as they are standard JSPs. If there is a letter behind the number, then it has been revised and that is the current version. So before you turn in your JSPs, you may want to run through the table of contents of your JSPs and make sure you have the latest versions. You will notice if we go back and look at the JSPs for this project, there are a lot of standard JSPs that don't have numbers behind them, like contract liquidate damages, and work zone traffic management. When the numbers have been removed, that indicates the standard JSP has been modified. It is preferred not to modify the standard JSPs, but it is understood that there are cases where they need to be modified. And if that is the case, you need to make sure you remove the JSP numbers from behind the JSP title. I'd like to go over the different JSPs listed on the JSP SharePoint site. Standard JSPs are JSPs that are common but don't have a place in the standard specifications. Non-standard JSPs are JSPs that may have a place in the standard specifications but need to be piloted on some projects before revising the standard specifications. There may also be JSPs where we normally want what is in the standard specification, but in some cases we want a different specification. LPA JSPs are self-explanatory. They are JSPs for the local public agencies. JSP packages are where we have put together all the required JSPs for typical JOC, CLC, and seal coat projects. If you need help creating a set of JSPs for your project, you can look under the standard JSPs, and there is a JSP named Roadway JSP Instructions. This JSP will show you how to map the JSP SharePoint site to your network drive, selecting your JSPs, adding and editing the table of contents, and other tricks that will make it easier to modify your JSPs. Next, I'm going to talk about bid items, also known as pay items. What are bid items? Bid items contain the description, units, and accuracy of the pay items in the contract for construction of Missouri transportation infrastructure. Why are they called bid items and pay items? It just depends where you are in the process. If you're using them for the estimate for the contract to bid on, they're called bid items. If you're in construction using these item numbers to pay the contractor, they are called pay items. You can access the current bid items list from MoDOT's main webpage. If you hover over doing business with MoDOT, you will get these options at the bottom of the first column. You see the contractor resources. Click on it and bring up the contractor resources page. On the left side, you will see bid item listing. Click on this to go to the bid items listing web page. Here's the bid item listing page. In the first table, you will find links to the general design letter for changes made to the bid item listing. I will talk a little more on this here in a little bit. In the second table, you'll see the current and previous complete bid items list. When you open the list, you will see the effective date up in the right-hand corner. Each pay item has a number, unit, type, and item description. The unit type tells the accuracy you need to figure your quantities to and how the contractor will be paid. This is a good place to search for bid items. We see several 99 numbers for bid items that are already in the bid item list. So to save you some work, you may want to look here before you create a 99 number and a JSP for that 99 number. I'm going to turn it back over to Sarah, and she's going to talk about general provision and supplemental specifications.
General provisions and supplemental specifications, often called the Blue Pack. It is called the Blue Pack because back in the day, when we still did paper plan sheets and contracts, it actually had a blue cover. Now that everything is available electronically, the Blue Pack is no longer printed with a blue cover. General provisions and supplemental revisions are additional and revised specifications to the standard specifications. They are contractually binding, and in the hierarchy of contract documents that Rick mentioned earlier, the only contract documents governing higher than supplemental revisions and general provisions are the project-specific plan sheets and job special provisions. You'll want to check these often when preparing plan sheets to ensure you are using the most up-to-date specifications. Tim pointed out earlier where the standard specification items are located on MoDOT's internet. You can find the general provisions and supplemental specifications in the same location. Because the general provisions and supplemental revisions are contractually binding and legal documents, they are signed and sealed by MoDOT's chief engineer. The general provisions are currently listed in two sections, Division 100 provision and Division 600 provisions. And then there are the revisions to the standard specifications. Division 100 and 600 provisions are basically additional specifications that do not easily fit into the standard specifications. Some of the provisions are regulations or laws that we at MoDOT have no control over, such as Section 401 Water Quality Certification Conditions and Section 404 Nationwide Permit General Conditions. The supplemental revisions to the standard specifications are just that, revised specifications. The standard specification is only printed, and I use air quotes, printed, because it is electronic. It is really only produced once a year in July. In July 2021, the 2021 version of the spec book will be produced. Until the spec book is produced in July, revisions to the spec book are located in the supplemental revisions. Again, you will want to check the supplemental revisions to ensure you're using the most up-to-date version of the specifications. Here are a couple examples of revised specifications. Note the effective date on the right-hand side. That indicates when the specification became effective. Now back to Rick to talk about what happens after the contract is awarded.
Thank you, Sarah. After we have planned for and designed a project, let it out for bidding, and awarded the contract to the lowest responsible bidder, MoDOT's role now shifts to contract administration and construction inspection. A resident engineer's office will perform these tasks. The resident engineer is an immediate representative of the Missouri Highway and Transportation Commission. They have the authority to ensure the quality, quantity, and acceptability of materials and work on the projects assigned to their office. The RE is responsible for ensuring that the contract is being honored. They're on projects like the one shown, inspecting all aspects of construction and ensuring that proper construction practices are followed. And they are working with materials staff to ensure all materials incorporated into the project are within our specs. In doing so, the RE and their staff are out there using their knowledge and experience, along with the many documents and tools that we have discussed that are available to them. They use our policies, plans, specifications, contractual documents, and their collective authority to assure quality on our construction projects and answer questions that may arise. There is a hierarchy of these documents, and they start with the signed contract and the project-specific plans. If there is ever a discrepancy between contract documents, standards, and specifications, or any questions that need answered, the hierarchy is as follows. First, starting out with job special provisions. These are in the contract. Next, you look toward the project-specific drawings. These are our project plans, cross-sections, bridge plans. Next will be the general provisions, also in the contract, and the supplemental specifications from the contract. Following that are the standard specifications. These are our Missouri standard specifications for highway construction, and then the standard drawings, our Missouri standard plans for highway construction. And last, you would look toward the bid items or quantities from the contract. Any deviations from any of these standards or contract documents must be through the RE in the form of a change order. This is our required documentation that something differs from the contract or our policy. Keith will talk more about documentation and forms here in just a bit, and with that, I will turn things back over to him.
Thank you, Rick. Recent changes to the EPG are always available from the EPG's main page. Scroll a little way down to Recent Policy Changes in the EPG and click it. You will find the 25 most recent noteworthy changes from about the last 2 or perhaps 3 months. These entries will have links to the articles or forms that have been updated, as well as a brief description of the change. Speaking of changes, how are the standards updated? How does a proposal become policy? Well, the Engineering Policy Services Group is actually open to ideas from practically everybody. Do you see a standard plan or an EPG article that has some sort of error? Let us know, and we will get it corrected. But all revisions to MoDOT standards must be authoritative. And if the proposed revision involves some policy or procedure, the proposed revision has to be endorsed by a division or other authoritative source. Proposed revisions are submitted using the Engineering Policy Revision Request form. But what happens after the proposed authoritative revision has been submitted? The Engineering Policy Services Group determines whether proposed revisions may update the standards without being balloted, or if they need to be placed on a ballot and approved by the Assistant Chief Engineer or the Chief Engineer. If a proposal involves a routine technical matter, an errata correction, or a clarification, it is a level 1 revision and can be approved without comment from the district engineers, the division engineers, or the chief engineer. The standard will be revised as necessary. If a proposed revision is determined to be a moderate technical change, or if it requires specific expertise, for instance, structural design, or if it impacts more than one division, the proposal is processed as a level 2 ballot item and must be approved by the assistant chief engineer. The district engineers, division directors, and division engineers have 10 business days to provide their comments to the assistant chief engineer, who will consider the idea before sending a decision to the policy and innovations engineer. The Federal Highway Administration is given 10 working days to provide comment or concurrence with the policy and innovations engineer. After approval, the standards will be revised as necessary. If a proposed revision is determined to be a complex technical change, contentious, or if it has high cost or impacts MoDOT's external conduct of business, the proposal is processed as a level 3 ballot item and must be approved by the chief engineer. The district engineers and select division directors or division engineers are given 10 business days to provide their comments to the chief engineer, who will consider the idea before sending their decision to the policy and innovations engineer. The Federal Highway Administration has 10 business days to provide comment or concur with the proposal. On approval, the standards will be revised as necessary. Level 2 and Level 3 proposed revisions are handled on a quarterly basis. The EPG's help article provides a handy chart to let you know when to get your proposals submitted to the Engineering Policy Services. The help article also provides information on how to fill out the Engineering Policy Revision Request form. Speaking of forms, the EPG presents all the forms you need to do your work. For instance, one of those forms is the Design Exception form. Anytime the project is impacted by something or includes something that is not standard or policy, it must be documented. Also, everything that is constructed differently from what the project plan shows must be documented. The Design Exception form is available in several articles, but probably its most convenient location is in EPG 101 Standard Forms. There, you can find it listed under either Bridge Division or Design Division. Another useful form, the Change Order form, is available in EPG 101 Standard Forms as well. Construction and Materials has included it in its lengthy listing of important forms. And now, back to Tim.
Now it's time to talk about design standard letters. Design letters document revisions to MoDOT policy and standard specifications. There are 3 design letter types: general letter, standard plans, and standard specifications. The general letter type covers revisions to general policy items like the EPG, bid item list, and general provisions. The standard plans and the standard specification letter types, of course, cover the revisions to those documents. You can access the design letters in multiple locations. As I showed you earlier, you can access the design letters from the standard specification page. You can click on the engineering policy standards letters link, or you can go down to the specification table. Here you can access the design letter that pertains to the current specification. You will notice some quarters have a S and a G design letter included in them. The S is for the revisions to the standard specification, and the G is for the revisions to the general provisions. Here's what the design letter looks like. It tells you when the letter was sent out, when these revisions are effective. It provides a list of sections that are affected by these revisions, what standard specification these revisions apply to. The revisions are listed under minor revisions and major revisions. Major revisions are usually items that required to be approved as a ballot item. It is good to review these when they are posted to see if there are any revisions that may affect your project. There are a couple ways we try to inform you that we have revised our policy or our standard specifications. One way is through the Guidance Center. You can access the Guidance Center through the Design SharePoint site. In the second row, you'll see the engineering policy logo. Click on it, and then click on Guidance Center in the middle of the page. You will also notice that you can access the EPG, design letters, JSP, specs, and standard plans here. So this probably wouldn't be a bad page to bookmark. Here's what a Guidance Center notice looks like in the Guidance Center database. This was a notice we sent out on our April revisions to the EPG, general provisions, standard specifications, standard plans, and pay items. The Guidance Center just isn't for our use. Anyone can submit a request if they have an important policy change they would like to inform certain divisions statewide. Once a Guidance Center request is approved, an email goes out statewide depending on what divisions were selected on the request. Here's what a Guidance Center email looks like. This was one that was sent out for our April revisions. In the subject line, it would tell what division was included on this notice, which was all for this one. There's a link at the top of the email that will take you to the Guidance Center database for this notice, but it also provides you the information in the email. Here you see we attach links to all the design letters. Another way we notify you of revisions to policy or standard specification is by sending out e-updates. Here's an example of an e-update for April standard specification revisions. We provide a link to the specification webpage and the design letter. Again, it is a good habit to review these to make sure nothing has changed that will affect your project you are working on. If you aren't currently receiving these e-update notifications, you can sign up for them on the main page of the EPG. That is all I have for you today. I will turn it back over to Sarah to wrap things up for us.
Well, we want to thank you for joining us today. This does conclude our engineering guidance and standards overview. Now we will check the questions from the chat box and answer any questions that you might have. Julie, do we have any questions?
So we did have a few. We have answered, I think, all of them. I'll just cover one real quick, and that is we have a lot of requests for the slides. So we will attach those to the recording in mo.u. So when you go to mo.u, you can search for this webinar, and they should be an attachment, and then you can download that attachment from that. I forgot to stop my video for you. So we will do that. We had a question about it says, are they capable to be downloaded with Bluebeam? And I think they were talking back in the beginning, Tim, about your DGN files and stuff. And he answered that, but do you want to go ahead and answer that one, Tim?
Well, I believe they were talking about the PDF files, and I don't have Bluebeam myself, but Sarah, you have Bluebeam, Don't you? And you're able to open all the PDFs for the standard plans and specifications, correct?
That's correct. As long as it's a PDF file, it can be opened with either Adobe Reader, Adobe Acrobat, or Bluebeam. So yes, it can be.
And I think that's the last of the questions in the chat. If anybody want to raise their hand and ask anything or state anything, we can do that as well. Deanne, I didn't see any hands raised. Do you have any hands raised?
Not that I am showing at the moment, no.
Maybe that is a good indicator that we covered everybody's questions.
Julie, if you would please go over those verbally, just read them so they're on the recording for the closed captioning, that would be great.
Well, that's where I think I've covered them all. I mean, there was one question, where we used a few of our jargon and terms. One was, what is MicroStation? So we clarified that MicroStation is MoDOT's CAD platform. Another one asked, what is a JOC? So we clarified that as a job order contract and provided the link to the EPG that talks about that contracting method. And then, there is one I missed here that does say, you may want to mention that links to the bid items and job special provisions are available in the EPG on the left side.
As well as links to the standard plans and the specs. It's very handy on the side, left side of every article.
Thank you, Keith. Someone is asking if this training will be closed captioning. Yes, that is part of what takes us a little bit to get this into MoDOT-U. We will take this training, we put the closed captioning on that, and then when we upload that back into MoDOT-U, you will have closed captions there available for you. Still working on a technology that allows us to do that at the time of these trainings. Anybody else raised hands or have any questions? I see an applause. Thank you, someone, for sending us an applause for job well done. Deanne, it does look like Nicole has a hand raised. If you will unmute Nicole.
Nicole, you're unmuted. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to make sure I understand, when you're saying you're going to add those to the MoDOT-U, do we need to re-sign up in order to access those, or how would we go about it? I know everything kind of got lumped into MoDOT-U, and I'm just trying to keep up with the times.
Yes, when you go to MoDOT-U, you should be able to just search for the webinar. I say you don't have to enroll. You may have to click details, class details, I think is what it is, and then it shows up as an attachment there. But
Okay.
I will verify. You are right. They are making a lot of changes to MoDOT-U, and we will verify that with Hannah. But we have put some attachments out there with some other webinars of these in the past. So.
Okay, thank you.
Julie, I would also add that if they've already gotten credit for this class, so if you took it today and you just want to go back and review a portion of it, the easiest way to do that is probably go to the YouTube channel, and we'll have that video out there, so you can just go to a certain part of the video and watch it. But just a reminder that if you go to YouTube, you don't get credit if you haven't taken this class yet.
Right. So that's why we put them in both locations, MoDOT-U. If you haven't sat in on it, you go through that and you can get your credit. if you just want to, like Kenny said, go back and check out a portion of it. Oh, I try to remember what Sarah said about erosion control. You can just pull that up on the design YouTube channel, look for the class, and then just fast forward to that part and watch it that way without going through Mo.U. But don't go to the don't go to the YouTube channel and expect to get credit. So 2 ways to kind of get there.
Great, thanks for clarifying.
No problem. Any other questions? Hand raises.
That's the only hand I see.
Okay. Well, if you didn't get a chance to ask a question or you think of one later, please reach out to any of today's presenters. All their contact information is right here on the slide for you. You can also always find their contact information on our Design Division SharePoint page or in the MoDOT directory. Hopefully you remember their names and faces, but if not, those are always great resources to go and find their contact information. They are the experts and working with all this, and great resources for you. Never hesitate to reach out and ask any of us questions. That's what we're here for. I hope today's presentation provided a better understanding of our engineering standard documents and all the guidance that exists, why it exists, how they are provided to assist you with developing your projects and plans, and how they all work together. As we wrap up today's webinar, we will be registering you in Mo.U when you attended today. The WebEx system does allow us to track who is attending by computer, but if you are attending by phone, or if you have a group of you in a location, be sure that you send your names to Deanne Lieberg. So Deanne can get you on that roster and get you registered in Mo.U for having attended. So again, if you're signed on by your computer, we can see your name, but if you're by a phone or several in one location, make sure we have all those that are in attendance in that location or by phone so you get your credit. So then you should be able to watch your transcript and see that this class will show up in your Mo.U transcript as attending. We just want to put a plug in for our next design webinar series. They are scheduled for May 11th and June 24th. On May 11th, we will be hosting Chief Counsel's Office, and they will be presenting consideration of legal issues. Then on June 24th, Laura Ellen from our Design Division will also be presenting on consultants and how to utilize consultants, how to procure a consultant, how we have our on-call list and our solicitations, preparing scopes, negotiating, and managing consultants. So everything you like to know about consultants and working with the consultants, Laura and her guest speakers will be covering on June 24th. You can register for these upcoming webinars. They are in Mo.U. As Jessica mentioned in a note she sent out previously, but we've changed the name of those. When you go to Mo.U, make sure you search for Program Delivery Webinar instead of the Design Series webinar. So Program Delivery Webinar, do the search in Mo.U and you should find those 2 upcoming webinars as well. So that concludes our webinar for today. We do appreciate your feedback. We don't have a survey yet, but any comments you'd like to send Kenny or myself, we're certainly open to hear those. That helps us get better, make sure we're meeting your expectations. And if you also have any additional topics that you think would be important to know about, that you'd like to learn more about, certainly send those to us as well. Again, that just helps us make sure we're giving you everything you need to successfully deliver the projects. So thank you for your participation today and have a great day, everyone.